Okay?
Oh, nice.
Okay, I think you've never seen somebody fix a projector this quickly before in your life, so it's already the same. Okay. Okay, well, we need to thank Veronica because she was great. Okay, first of all, welcome everyone. So, fourth battle today. I want to give you the topic and the scenario that we're going to discuss today. So, today we will be talking about the idea of the smart city, and we will be exploring deeper the consequence of the idea of the smart city and a possible alternative, which is what we call the smart countryside. Today's battle is particularly crucial, let's say, because you will see a variant of this battle in 3 weeks' time happening in Nice. And you will be the audience, and in Nice there will be two teams doing the same kind of debate. Of course, they will propose different solutions, but we hope that you will be able to gather some insights from the battle here, so that when you see the battle in Nice, you will be able to contribute well. I think it's just the cable that will... Okay, perfect. So we also have a more specific scenario today, and the scenario is the following: we are at some time in the future. We don't know precisely when, but the point is this: Earth has colonized 2 planets. Okay. And it's okay. Let's leave it there. And these 2 planets have been developed and terraformed in 2 different ways. One of them has been developed to become some sort of a smart city, so the idea that we have now of the city of the future. The other one has been developed to follow the idea of a smart countryside. So something that takes the ideals of community and all of the things that the team will be presenting, but scaled up on a planetary level. And you're on Earth, and you can buy 1 ticket to go to live on one of these 2 planets. The question is, which ticket do you buy? If you want to live the rest of your life, to which model do you want to go? Do you want to go to the smart city model or to the smart countryside model? So this is the key question of today. So I think the team Smart Countryside decided that they will go first. So off to you.
Hi guys, we're Smart Countryside, and let's explain why we are here. This is an illustration of the population trend that happened on the Earth you're still living. Specifically showing the consistent drop that happened on countryside during time. But don't get us wrong, the red lines you see here is never going to happen in the near or in the long future here on this planet. But why? Because during the industrialization era, set a series of features that led more and more people to move from countryside to new settlements built and developed as we refer to cities. This shift mainly happened because cities offered comfort, services, and technological progress that countryside couldn't offer. On the other side, though, this move had trade-offs because all the key points characterizing countrysides were lost. Now, let us ask you a question. If you would have to leave Earth, why should you go to an exact Earth copy when you can go to an enhanced version of it? In colonizing our planet, the settlement happened on countrysides, but with a substantial difference. On a different time first, and with advanced technology. This is why all the valuable features that only cities, as you know them, offered, were easily brought to our settlements in the countrysides. Still having all the good things that made countrysides worthy in the first Earth development. And I mean, we're really guessing which weird compromise would a smart city solution adopt to bring all the countryside goodness to their scenario. And I think this need no explanation. I think it's so trivial to agree on which scenario is best, even if you're the same opportunities on both scenarios. This is our countryside world, and we know what you're asking yourself. Like, since you're using the so decentralized approach, how can you manage with transportation? Well, it may be hard to imagine for you, but our approach, as we consider transportation as a resource, not a constraint. What this means is that with our focus on advanced technology transportation, we were able to set up an air transportation so fast that distance is not an issue at all. And it consists of basically two levels, height levels. The lower for goods logistics, including food, for example, with drones, and the upper for people transportation, using drone cars. And talking about food logistics, each individual farmer is able to sell through an online platform his individual production, and each seller obviously is responsible of the quality food he's bringing to the market. And as you could have guessed, there's no centralized market. And on our planet, talking about industries, for example, obviously industries are more focused on specific products, and the centralized transportation results in more engaged exchanges of goods between them, leading to better final products. Also, industries in our planet obviously tend to be virtualized based. What does it mean? Because this means that they don't rely on physical headquarters. Okay. All of this boosts situations in the working scenario, like home working, like co-working places in each village. And what is good about co-working places is they can help socializing with people, different people, and to share ideas that can end up in innovating concepts or ventures, and also supporting freelancer figures. But what about medical figures, for example? As a doctor, I have to ensure that each village has an healthcare system that meet the basic level required by the patients.
So how to solve this issue? Of course, we included the the healthcare department in our educational syllabus. So we have, when we are talking about educational syllabus, we are talking about two types of schools. The physical schools, where the younger ages will start from, and the virtualized educational platform. In the virtualized platforms, we are using the advanced technologies, like kind of hologram technology. Of course, we can use it for example, for anatomy students who want to do some examination of a corpse and so on. And for our safety, of course, we have to talk about robotics and drones, because these kind of technologies are taking part of our life. So we have to include it in our life to make kind of safety. So for example, we have the robotic. This kind of robotics, we can use it in our smart police stations. So no need for any humans, because we already have robotics, and the humans will interact more with their families and friends in their social life. Also, if you want to talk about happiness, the happiness, of course, all of us has the internal nature happiness. So this kind of happiness coming when we are, for example, going to work, or when we are, for example, taking kind of money. So this nature happiness coming also when you are communicating with a robotic, called this robotic in your home. So in your house you will have a robotic, a friendly, a customized assistant robotic that you can interact with it, and of course you can interact with your family, and we can use this robotic for educational purposes and so on. Social drivers, of course, we have to focus on, because as we said, that when you want to go to your work, of course you have a goal, you have a mission and passion that you want to achieve it. And you have not to achieve only for yourself, because you are a part of the community, so you have to achieve also for the community. As you are getting advantage, also you have to give an advantage and put your fingerprint in the community. So this puzzle, we can see that each piece is related and connected to other pieces to create a bigger picture for what? For our smart countryside world.
To sum it all up, like we've said, the society is not only happy because of the robotics, but it has a lot of variety. The community work they do together, the various happiness places. But we are saying we are the decentralized, and decentralization is better. Like once my land friend Alexander Den said, when a flower does not bloom, you change the environment in which it grows, not the flower. We are the right and the new environment. We are the future. We are the smart countryside. Do not be afraid to change for good, for the best, because we are the best. Do you want to be part of our group? Please.
So I want to just say thanks to my colleagues for presenting so well the work we've been preparing in the last weeks. And we have a lot of tickets. They're not already on sale. So just you can buy them from our black market of space travel tickets. We bought 6 of them, and we have a lot of tickets to sell to you. So just make the right choice and ask a lot of questions if you're interested in our project. So thank you very much for listening.
Okay, so hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about smart cities. Why are we presenting smart cities? Because today's cities have problems. The first problem we can think of is air pollution. We can see that sometimes we cannot even see the horizon because of the gray air coloring the sky. But also overcrowded cities is a big problem. People are sharing the same facilities, the same services, but the number is growing so fast. Actually, the problems of cities are so many that we cannot even list them all. We have, for example, noise or neglecting suburbs. So at this point you might be thinking, these guys are supporting the wrong position. But the trend over the past 500 years has been growing dramatically towards urbanization. We can see basically all the countries and also the world is going to populate more and more cities. And this time we are looking at a vicious cycle which is definitely not working as it should. The cause, in our opinion, hides in the fact that cities have been growing in the same place towards the year. Do you think that the designer of New York 150 years ago was thinking about such a big growth, especially in the vertical perspective? Well, probably not. But the ground area has remained the same, and as we mentioned earlier, the spaces are getting more and more small for people. So what we are proposing, what we are presenting is the Smart City Planet, a planet which has been entirely colonized to form a global smart city. This planet has been fully designed to be on human scale, so everything has been studied to be perfect and fit humans. The key point is that we know how big it is, the planet, and we know what we're going to build on top of it. So we can have a better control of these aspects. So, as we said, heterogeneous environment. The planet is Earth-like, so we have both mountains and sea. It's not a full flat planet. We also, as I said, developed it on human scale, designed it in every aspect to be human-friendly. But most importantly, we use a centralized approach because we think centralization helps and is the better choice when the best choice when we are planning such infrastructures. And now we're going to see why in the next slides. So first of all, we have transportation. We decided to divide it in layers. We have an underground layer in which trains. There are trains for people and also for goods. And there are stations that act as nowadays stations for passengers, but also intermediate stations for goods. Then we have the ground level in which people move by foot or by bicycle. We encourage the fact that people can move and do physical activity at the same time. This is good for their health, and it is also good for their happiness. Of course, this is not always feasible, so we also offer bicycles, electric bicycles, and electric scooters, but there are no cars. Why don't we have cars? Because they are not needed. Cars need parking lots. We have to think about accidents, and we have a good public transportation system, which makes us forget about cars. Also, something that I forgot to mention is that everything is fully electric, so no pollution, and of course this makes also the air more breathable and so on. Then we have education, and education is another key feature in our world. Every institute is available, so everybody can study whatever they want, and they don't have to be rich or coming from particular families to attend certain institutes. But we believe that education does not only take place in schools. We also offer a lot of inspiring activities such as workshops or conferences in which people can deepen their knowledge and also meet some experts of the field. We want to avoid illiteracy. Illiteracy is never good for society, and with such centralized approach, we can have a better control over people and avoid cases like these ones. Cultural diversity is also something that we absolutely need to preserve. It allows people to be more open-minded, but at the same time to view stuff from different perspectives. But cultural diversity is not only about religion. Here we have some pictures of a Catholic church, a synagogue, and so on. But cultural diversity is also about food. So every day you can choose to eat whatever particular sort of food you like, from different cultures, from different origins. What I think, however, is the greatest thing about a centralized approach is the fact that we can have many social activities that are possible because many people is around. So first of all, we decided to think of some particular activities for people living in the same building, in the same skyscraper, or in the same district. This is done in order to create a community, to get to know your neighbor, which is something that sometimes we forget when we live in cities. But we think that this is great if someone feels lonely and wants to live the life of a community. Of course, on the other hand, if someone does not want to participate in such activity, they can just don't do it. Then, okay, we are a smart city, but that doesn't mean that we don't have nature. We have still parks. We have the possibility of enjoying a walk outside, and also the possibility of doing sports. So if one day you wake up and you want to try a new sport, maybe a strange one, well, you will find a way to do it, and a structure which offers all the facilities necessary. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, events. How can an event like Spec and Tech take place if you're not in a city? So you need expertise, you need people, and you probably want to meet someone, to do some networking, also to talk with the speaker at the end of the talk. Why not? Lastly, the healthcare system is another crucial point in our world. We decided to divide it first by putting some automated devices in everyone's home. So we can think of IoT monitor systems that can control the health of the people. Then we have community clinics spread around the city, which can help in curing maybe small problems. But the key point is the central hospital. The central hospital is where the best doctors are working, where the best research also takes place, and it is where people are cured when they have a serious disease. I will now let the floor to Sofia, who will explain an average day in the city.
Hi guys, it's so nice to see you, so many people, despite the fact that there's a strike today. So let me introduce you to a day in the city. So here is Mark. Mark lived an ordinary life in the ordinary earth, but now he moved to the smart city we offered. His morning routine contains waking up and going to his window and unfolding the curtains where he can see a beautiful mountain and feel the calmness of what it gives him. And also he goes and creates a breakfast for him. But now Mark has an issue. He is in the lack of milk, dairy products. So what does he do? He has no time to go to the grocery store because he needs to go to work. Now we offer a smart ingredient providing system in every house in the smart city, where you only have to open your smart phone or smartwatch or to go to the fridge directly to see on the platform. You have to only type what you want to buy, and here it is in minutes. We have a centralized farming building and a centralized storage unit where all the fruit is and the groceries are provided from that storage via tubes in a very, very fast way. Mark is also going to work, but sometimes he thinks about all the possibilities he could have. Well, he have everything he would like to do, because we provide a centralized workplace where every kind of firms are, and Mark can choose which firm he wants to go. He doesn't need to only be restricted on one firm in his own part of the city. He also has a father who is now ill. Luckily, this illness is only a cold. So his father needs to take special kind of medicines, but he sometimes forgets it. Because Mark has a smart application via the smart cities security system of the healthcare. He can look at his father's health and call him to remind him to take the medicines. He also has a day off from the family to do so. Now he goes to his teammates and to the work events. He can either go to have a climb in the mountains, or he can go to find a bowling place with his team. So Mark is having and living a fulfilled life and a happy life. Now it's your time to choose the smart city. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be fulfilled? This is what we can provide.
Alright, so to conclude, a consideration: mankind already chose cities. Do you want to be part of the progress or not? We are Team Smart Cities. Thank you.
Just a few things if you want to that I want to draw your attention to prepare questions. So their key point is about in general, the type and the quality of human interaction in the space that we live. Okay, and you see this decline in two different models. But look about some elements, just a few things. Intersections between what they discussed. They have taken, for example, both have discussed about education. They have two different angles. Both of these two angles are relevant in education literature, but which one is which? How are they different? If you want to poke, this is an interesting idea. Also, they're talking about different ways to fulfill human needs. But which one are needs and which one are societal driven needs? So which one are things that we actually need and which ones are things that we are used to needing? There is also a point for both of scalability and achieving critical mass. And both of them just touch this, but up to a certain point. So try to force them to improvise, okay? Also. Because maybe they didn't think about some of your questions, just try to see where they can go. But be reasonable. Okay?
Can we ask questions now?
Okay.
Can we ask questions, or we have to wait first
You can start asking questions to each other, of course. I will turn on the light also here.
That's
Easy. Okay, so if you want to start, you can start. Otherwise, we can start from here.
Yeah, okay. Can I ask a question to them? Yeah, I just have a question. The first question I have is like, I really enjoy your presentation, and I see a lot of interesting solutions to a lot of nice problems. And my question is just like, it really looks like a presentation that says that smart cities are better than traditional cities. But I didn't really get why smart cities should be better than smart countryside. You got the point? So what of your solution, which of those solutions are not applicable in a smart countryside in your opinion?
Well, if you look at every aspect of the things we presented, involves a centralized factor. So the fact that you have many people living in the same place allows you to have all the education possibilities for citizens, allows you to have the central hospital if you think about the healthcare, allows you to have social interaction with many people. I mean, this is an implicit element of living in a place in which there are many people, which is a city.
So this is the concept of critical mass we're talking about. Leave it there.
Yeah. And also cultural diversity, of course. If there is a lot of people, there will be a lot of cultural
Sorry,
diversity.
just to know, is anybody familiar with the term critical mass?
No.
Raise your hand if you are. Raise your hand if you're not. Okay, interesting. I was thinking this was common knowledge, but let me try to tell you. I think it's relevant. Critical mass is the minimum amount of quantity of something that you need in order for something to work. Okay, so this means, for example, when you're talking about critical masses of people, you're saying, okay, I can build a hospital, but until I have like 5 doctors and 5 key departments, I cannot even call it a hospital. Okay, so this is the concept of critical mass. If I want to create traction about a university, for example, I need a certain critical mass of research, of students, of publications in order for this to remain relevant. So what they're talking about is the idea of critical mass. Yeah, but feel free to react. Sorry.
Just, I didn't, if you can, sorry, maybe I misunderstood. Like, what is your point for smart cities that have maybe something that we don't have?
It's the critical mass. How can you achieve the critical mass in a small village?
We don't.
Of course, that's a problem.
We don't
because
need that.
You don't need that.
So how do you build a university in a small village?
We don't build universities.
We don't
build
need
we
we don't need to build all the things just together. And a small village does not mean like 10 houses.
Exactly.
A small village is like a place where there is not all put together like in cities, like happens in city. It's like we can have a big hospital. An hospital can host thousands of people, and it does not need to be in the same place where there is also the big university and also, I don't know, all the public offices, the government offices, and all together in the same place. Because transportation are so fast, you can move easily.
So
You can reach all places. You don't need to have a centralized point with all the things together. And even if, for example, this point is gonna like, I don't know, collapse, just everything together, you know, you can have much more problems if you have everything together. We can just split the things and put them all around the planet, like, and we don't need to put all together because the need to put things together came in the past because transportation and digitalization and all those things were not fast enough.
Okay, let's hear from Sergio.
Yeah, can we since the rules?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I got the
Go.
question.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, so first of all, you say that putting all the things together causes problems.
Yeah.
Causes problems today, not in a smart city maybe. So
Okay.
I would like to know also.
I stop you here just because I think there is a more radical question which maybe they caught, and I want to see if they.
So I cannot. Okay.
Because I want to see if they got. No, your point is okay, but there is a bigger problem with what they're saying.
The greatest thing about decentralization, if you think of technologies like blockchain, is the fact that every node has every type of information. It's not like each node has like 50% of information. They have everything. If you use a decentralized approach in which a node or a village doesn't have everything, then you are creating single points of failure. Like if a village has a problem, then you don't have a university. If another dies, then you don't have an hospital.
Right. So let me try. Thank you. I think this was the point I was getting to. Let me try to rephrase this. The question would be: is your model seeing more something like each node, let's say in your mesh, is specialized to one function? So you have one hospital city, one university city, one supermarket city, or is it more of something that each node has a tiny bit of everything, and then in somehow they are able to leverage the mesh to provide something of enough quality of service? Which is your vision? Which one of these two models? Both are reasonable. We're just asking which one is.
First of all, just before you answer, it's like a big part of the services in a far future will be provided like just by the net. Okay, so a lot of the services will be smart, and we know, like the bank. We actually know I can have my bank on my phone, so I really don't need not a big bank, not a small bank. So the first answer is probably half the services will be like smart, so we don't need to think about that. For the other half of services, you can answer it.
Yeah, like for education, like when you earlier said, every node like has small for the children because we want to preserve culture, and we believe at a young age it's when people get to learn their culture and don't forget about them. we have them central schools on every node. But on higher level like universities, we do not have something like every city has a university. What we have is a virtual way of learning, holograms. If anatomy, you want to exercise a corpse, everybody comes online in whichever node you're on. You virtually learn and learn from each node, and you're able to interact.
Okay, so if I'm trying to rephrase and understand, your position is that of saying we have some level of, let's say, specialization of each node, but most of this, your main argument is that most of the functions that now we are used to associate to buildings are going to become functions of the system. So you don't need to have specialized nodes for this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
otherwise it just brings inequality.
Okay, so your reaction with respect to this,
Okay.
and if you want to follow
Sure,
up,
I mean,
now
sure, some services will be digitalized, that's great. Some will not. Because what's the point of going to the university? Why are we here? Could we do something like this virtually? Or at the end of the battle, can I shake your hand virtually? I won't. I cannot. Maybe I have an hologram of you, which is very nice, but I will not be able to have physical
I see,
contact.
sorry, but this is where our transportation comes in, you know?
Yep, so let me stop you. So if I have to move, I have to move and commute basically to do every action. So if I have to go to the university, I go from my home to the university, then I have to go to the hospital, and I go to the hospital, and basically what's the point of having...
You're taking courses on a higher level, when you're not like 8 years old, okay? You're like high school to university actually. You're taking courses online, okay? Like on the net.
I suggest,
and
sorry,
this is
for both
exactly
teams,
what-
I suggest this. Focus not on the implementation,
Exactly.
but on the impact. Why is this better? Okay?
In our case, okay, since we have you can say small villages, okay, rather compared to yours, why should we have like physical buildings that give the opportunity to have higher education when maybe like on the other side of the planet we are living, there's no one. You just need to go there, even though the transportation is really fast in our scenario, okay? But why should I go just for the same education, okay? It just brings people. Like I can ask you like, for example, why there are still, we're living in cities nowadays, okay, most of us, maybe they are not as smart as you're projected, but for example, I can live in Milan, I can live in Padua, for example, but I want to go to Milan, to the other university, even though I have the same university in my region, in my town. Why? Because you think, you know, that has better educational value. So why should, in our scenario, that would end up having physical university, that would end up in people just go from a point to the other, just continuously heading nowhere in the end, you know?
Actually, to add on his point, where we don't want that approach of physical building, we don't want to create inequality. Like he was talking of the mass. One village might have more people than the other, and this village has more people than the other. But also look at the way of living in the countryside. We have different things that take different times, and that's what preserves their culture. We find that in the cities, they don't have anything culture that attaches to them, but in the smart countryside, it's a season for grapes. We have to come up and and pick the grapes from the garden. What happens? Will I have to go to school? The smart studying enables them to do even their societal drivers better, because you can pre-program, you can learn anytime, not necessarily being in the physical classroom.
All right. Do you agree with this?
Not at all.
Okay. So can you elaborate?
First of all, I don't get why there is inequality. What's the point why inequality? And you will tell me later, maybe. I don't know. Then, first of all, why inequality? Then,
education, you mean?
yeah, you mentioned the fact that there is inequality, but I don't get the.
I was saying,
Okay,
if you
sorry,
have
let's finish.
Then, how do you achieve cultural diversity? Because, okay, that's fine. You can grow with one culture, but then you're not in contact with another one. And actually, more importantly, how do you avoid isolation? So let's think that you are building a culture, which is, I don't know, I live in Italy, I have an Italian culture. But what if in my same school there is a Chinese guy? How do you preserve his identity, his religion, his habits? You cannot achieve that basically because if you are putting everything in a small structure, you cannot satisfy all the elements. It's impossible. It's physically impossible. This is what we are saying. And this is what we are saying when we think that having a broader view allows you to be also to include also more people and to have this diversity, which I can't really see how you.
So they're
manage
asking
to
you.
achieve.
Thank you. They're asking you to elaborate first better on this idea of inequality, on this, because you're building a correlation that cities lead to inequality. So they're asking you to build more of this idea, and they're asking you to explain how do you avoid silos cultures. So how do you avoid spaces which are, of course, there's a train that goes from point A to point B, but if point A and point B have radically different cultures, how do you create that positive contamination that happens naturally in a city from the fact that it is one whole ecosystem? Okay?
Can I say just something again before your answer? Just this is I'm so sorry, but this is like the key point. We've been like making mistakes in our old first meeting. We're just thinking bad about this. It's like we were thinking about villages again, like very small places. But like I was born in a town that has less than 5,000 people living there, and I consider that a village and not a city. And in my town, I've been living well with a lot of services and all that. So just please not think to villages like places in the past with 10 houses, okay? The difference is between a place where 5 to 10,000 people lives and a city like, I don't know, New York, a centralized point where all the things are together. Just think to this difference.
I agree. We're
Okay.
talking about the idea. We're talking about the idea of the megalopolis, the idea of the metropolis. Okay. So in this sense, if we went in the Middle Ages, 5,000 people would be almost a city already. But I agree that the point is the idea of the metropolis. Even though I would say their points remain.
Yeah, of course, of
So
course.
still
This was just a common
So yeah.
point.
So please, let's not do semantics on 5,000 people, where we build the cutoff, 5,001, 5,003. Okay, this is not the topic. Yeah, please.
Okay, regarding to cultural identity, our villages, of course, the population is being increased. So, of course, we will have many cultures. So, how to deal with these? Of course, education will be the main solution for our problem, which is the cultural identity. And plus, you can, of course, through the transportation, you can move easily to anywhere. So you have like a background about, for example, before I came to Italy, of course, I read about Italy and I read about Italian people and how to deal with them. So before I came,
but he did it well.
so of course, when I came to here, I have the knowledge, the education. So I can like do whatever I want easily without the need to face any problem. So this first problem point. Also about the population is being increased. Like for example, one of the studies showed that by 2050, imagine where the smart cities and a countryside will be there. By 2050, 68% of people will be living in cities. So imagine the much of like traffic, pollution, everything will be there. So if you want to do anything, of course it will take time to have what you want. So population and the money, like the government will stay putting money on all the buildings and smart services. Of course, we have to shift this kind of buildings to something more natural.
So you are saying there is such a thing as too much critical mass. But your questions were on inequality,
Yeah.
and on
Cultural.
Isolation and cultural
diversity.
Yeah, I can answer.
If I can
Sorry.
I want just to say that countryside doesn't mean no pollution. So
By
if
the
you're
way.
talking about cities, you can say,
Countryside, sorry.
I mean, countryside, by the way, doesn't mean, for instance, there's no pollution at all. You have to manage that.
Yeah.
You can't say that cities are just polluting.
All right. So let's keep this here. But please, inequalities and cultural diversity.
We mentioned inequality while talking about education, and I think like the system of education we have now is not equal all around the world. I guess you should agree with me with that. So that's not equal nowadays.
Why?
Oh, not just go to USA and try to study if you're not rich.
Okay,
College
we,
is so expensive.
we mentioned it, but we are not talking about money, really. I mean, money is an
What is
issue about
equality
it.
about you? So what type of inequality are we talking about if not?
You mentioned
It's
inequality.
not-
We never mentioned
Sorry.
inequality.
Yeah, so
I suggest you focus your answer on providing one missing link. which is the link between the city and inequality.
Oh, sorry, what is
No,
inequality?
the mistake is like that he mentioned inequality when talking about our solution to the education, because the online education and those services are going to cut a lot of costs and it's going to be cheaper, and we can provide education in a really good way to all the people.
Okay.
That's it.
So you are saying, let me try to rephrase. You are saying, in a city, since I need to have a certain level of infrastructure, I also need to maintain this infrastructure. Maintaining this infrastructure raises the cost level, and this creates a problem of equality. Is this the case?
While in the countryside, I can provide the education home by home to every people, to each one.
Because you are cutting the
I'm
infrastructure.
cutting, yeah.
I'm trying to, sorry if I intervene so much, but what I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
sorry folks, okay, what I'm trying to do is I'm taking their answers and making them explicit, okay? Because they're doing a lot of implicit talking. So we are going towards the end of the battles. So now we need to be aware of these methods, okay? What I'm saying is everything that they are already saying, but I'm making it explicit, okay? You should see the difference, hopefully. If I go beyond the boundaries, they shut me down, okay? And Chiara also. Okay, and then diversity.
As I mentioned that
They
each
replied on that.
They replied, okay, sorry.
So the first objection is that we never mentioned money. We decided not to talk about implementation. But even if we want to, I mean, you are saying that you are basically cutting the expensive for infrastructures to offer a better education for everyone virtually. But you did not explain me why virtual is better. Because to me, virtual is not better.
I explained. I told you in the countryside, people have different way of living. Because one of the things that preserves them is the things they do, that society drives them. I'll give an example. Right now, if it's a season for getting apples from the garden, the community would want even the elderly like me, who are strong, to join them in the garden to pick the apples for sale. So what happens? Should school come to a halt? No. So when we looked at the way of living in the smart countryside, we're like, no. Then as age advances from high school to university, we can take this online virtual learning so that we also don't give up the other things that drives us in the community.
Then another answer to the same question. I'm sorry, you can go.
In your solution, okay, you're proposing, and it's good, also socializing activities to preserve cultural identity, and maybe also, I don't know, maybe you mentioned, maybe you not, also to let other people experience and discover new cultures, okay? But what are you doing? You're trying to keep the things separated, like the culture separated. What are we doing here? We just not get. Let me reform it. You're just trying with your solution. Since you massed all the people together, you're just trying to keep the good things about the people, like their identity that defines them, and
You are living like in a flat, so how you will deal with your neighbor and you don't know him, you don't know anything about people around you. So you are stuck in your flat or in your office.
It makes him a counter, like a weird thing to think about it. But usually when we are living in cities, we're even more ignoring people than on our, maybe in smaller environments like my hometown, where I know more people.
Of course.
That how you can, okay.
Yeah, I got
So
your point.
your point is trying to keep things separated when we don't have need to.
Okay, I think they need a bit of a spotlight, so please.
No,
react.
because it's true that sometimes in cities you don't know your neighbor. We mentioned it, but we also mentioned that we were thinking about some sort of community, to create a community based on a skyscraper or people living in the same building. Why is this not possible? I mean, I think one big skyscrapers can host roughly the same amount of people of one of their villages. So why can't we not build a community out of that?
Okay.
So this is the answer at that.
Question.
I would like to have the audience a bit because you had a lot of stage time.
One
No.
Yeah.
Based on what you said, we already have skyscrapers and we already have big buildings where there are a lot of people, and we still have the problem of alienation. So what precisely is the way that we're going to address that?
So, if I can rephrase this question because it's very relevant. The question is, how does the transition from city to smart city break the induction, let's say, the vicious spiral of the city. Okay? Do we have other questions also from the audience? He was itching so many times. I don't know your name, sorry, but you were itching so many times. Do you have a question to ask?
I have a question for them, but
Okay, so let's have them answer, and then.
Yeah, me one, if I can ask to them. I don't understand actually, because you said at the beginning that you're going to use fast transportation.
Sorry.
At the beginning you said that you're going to use fast transportations and everything. You said after that you're going to cut infrastructures. So are you going to like manage faults? Are you going to
You manage, sorry?
faults in your transportation? Because if you're cutting infrastructure but you want to have fast transportation, you have to cover long distances, you know?
Try to think about it in this way. You take an area, okay, and you take I don't know, you draw an area, a circle. In the circle you put four dots, okay. You take the same circle and you put like 50 dots. I don't know, for example. If some of that dots just got, like you say, like fall, okay, okay. I think that rather than the other scenario where there are only four dots, sorry, it's just more easier to still go to the same direction.
Sorry, I think you missed the question. Let me try to rephrase this. The question is, you are saying that you want to cut infrastructure. So cutting infrastructure and reducing this overhead, in your idea of achieving equality, is a key point. However, in your distributed way, you still need a minimum level of infrastructure to make things work.
Yeah,
At a minimal level.
Exactly.
So his question is, how do you manage the fact that having more nodes increases exponentially the complexity of the connections, of creating a connection between the nodes? So the mesh, the bigger the mesh is, the more the connections are. Okay?
So you have more opportunities.
So, but how is it possible that the infrastructure cost decreases with the increasing of the...
Well, we could have done the same thing doing undergrounds, but maybe I think you can agree that it was like expensive 300 times, okay? So the smartest solution for our scenario is to use air transportation in the way that we have only to place some base station in the middle, and even when we want to make it more scalable and add maybe new villages arise, you know, it's just easier for us to put a base station and to avoid all the other works like underground works, like I don't know, also put some trails.
Okay, so let me try to make explicit what you are saying. Yeah.
Try to answer again, like
yeah.
Communication and transportation are the key point of our presentation of our project, because like with no transportation and no communication, smart countryside would be like the countryside we have today or we had in the past. So if I live in a countryside, I pay the taxes, I want the government to spend all that or a big part of that on transportation and on communication, because that's what makes the real difference. And the money, we have the money to do that because we are cutting all the other services.
Right, so what you are saying, let me again try to explicit what you are trying to say. What you are saying is there needs also to be a rethinking of how wealth is distributed. The moment in which I have smaller community, I expect the smaller community to take care of itself. And the higher level of governance instead just takes care of the creating and maintaining the connections. Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, it can be an answer.
So we have an answer. We have questions for them because I think they need a lot of spotlight now.
Yeah.
So it was coming from here. What's your question for who?
for them.
Okay, so let's have a spotlight. You also the question?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
yeah,
have
just respond
to
yours,
reply
yes.
to her question. So basically, what we were thinking of is this building this community, this community inside a building with the smart set services that would be available. So, for example, having better spaces, better coordination, and also gathering together the interests of people living in the same building. Something that is not happening today, but there are some projects who are trying to do so. But let me try to change the perspective. What if I live in a countryside, but I don't want to have contact? I don't want to be part of a community. I want to be lonely. I mean, their point is that they have a community, which is very nice. But maybe I don't want my neighbor to know when I come back every night and knock at my door to wish me Merry Christmas. Who knows? Maybe I want to be alone. I don't know how they can achieve that. In our city, it's really simple. You just don't take part to these
So
initiatives.
Trento is the perfect model of the smart city. Okay, so does this answer your question or?
Raise another question
Okay.
about them, but it doesn't exactly like. So you, because cities already exist nowadays, right? Like this idea of like getting together, having the same interest. It doesn't actually change the mentality of the people. It just creates like it gives you a way that you might be able to.
So you think that basically once you live in a city, let me.
This was the strike.
So you think that once you live in a city, your mind is just, yeah, I don't want to socialize with people. You think it's more difficult. But in this way, we are giving an opportunity. Then if someone doesn't want to, I mean, what can we do?
So I think I will try to rephrase their answer, again, to frame it in a way that maybe is more parsable. I think their answer is say the transition from the city to the smart city has the smart element. So the problem of the city will in some way need to be solved through the smart element. So this is what you are saying, pretty much, right? Yeah. What probably she is struggling to see is how the smart element is able to solve this. So my question to you to follow up would be, why do you think so far we have not been able to leverage this smart element? Is it because we are stupid? Is it because it is impossible? Is there a deterministic correlation, or is it a matter of societal maturity maybe?
Well, probably a mixture of, I mean, of course it's difficult because it's something difficult to achieve. Imagine a big grey skyscraper in the suburb of Milan. How do you get this? It's difficult. So of course the smart element is missing nowadays. And then it's a matter of attitude of people. So if people choose this way of living, of course we are nobody to change their mind. We are just giving the opportunity, if they want, if they miss the concept of community, to get it.
Okay. Let's, we had one more from them, yeah?
I have one from them. For the transportation thing, okay, you mentioned that you wanna build only the train or nearly only the train, right? For transportation. So how can you manage to connect all various points from a big city? Engineering speaking, because take an example, a big city like London has 5 lines, I think, for the metro, but how can you manage to do a big network, because of you cannot go infinitely deeper,
Okay.
because you have to do a lot of lines.
Okay, no, I think it's clear. Thank you. You wanted to add something, Francesco?
Yeah. So I read a lot of studies in the last week about the happiness related to the size of the city, and they found out that one of the key of the happiness of the citizens was the commute time. So the less was the commute time, the more people were happier. So how do you handle the fact that in a really large city, even if it's really smart, you will have to take the 5 bus of this
So, excuse me, I have to stop you here, because we have to take the 5 bus, you have to go to the other side of the world to reach another village. I mean, who has the bigger problem?
Yeah, I mean,
So, let me try to rephrase this question in another way, because I think it's relevant. So your answer, I think, by the way, was smart. But the question that they have is the following. How do you think the smart city solves the problem of bottlenecks, which is another key problem of cities? Because when cities scale, bottlenecks form. How does the smart element in smart city inform a solution to this? I will also ask you one more thing to both teams. Can we have the people that talked less start speaking more? So for you, I guess, is the girls, and you, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. And for you, I think is the girls.
Number 2 and number 4.
The curvy fellow as well. And also, those are also the second, but the two of them have been completely silent so far. So I will have this bit.
We will outside.
So if somebody in the meantime wants to share some general reflections, yes. So populations, the way we handle population is that we said we think that these are two planets with the same population, okay? But we are kind of saying they are the two planets of the same size, but in the same population, but distributed differently. One is all around a big city; it's a city planet. The other one is a kind of rural planet. Okay.
If the village has more people, it cannot remain so distributed.
You just make more nodes. Okay. So what we're saying is we don't need to focus too much on the numbers. Okay. But the concept is the same. The concept is this. They're dividing this in smaller units. They are dividing them in much bigger units. 1 mega clusters. Okay. Yeah. So I want to hear their answer first. Yeah.
Okay, so bottlenecks. I guess it's all. So what we see today, that cities start from small, and they are building layers and layers and layers. And of course, the transportation has to provide something that can make a better solution for getting to these layers. But we have a solution that we are already planned with these layers. We are already planned the routes. We are already planned the network. So every design we have and the efficiency we have now.
So let me try to. I'm not sure I understood your answer. Let me try to rephrase this, and you tell me if I understood correctly or not. You're saying it's true that a city forms bottlenecks, but these are typically solved by the fact that cities are developed in layers. So the bottleneck just is not to be seen at a global city scale, but inside each layer, which is less of a problem. Is this what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the answer. Do we have more questions? So can we just have quickly raise your hand if you have questions? Okay, there's a bit of a queue. Okay, so let me start from you, the webmaster, which is new, and then from you, not new in the sense didn't speak yet today. From you, and we go in this priority. Okay? Yeah.
Okay. This question is for you, but if you like to listen, it's okay. I was thinking about Trentino's Valley that are going to be empty, and who is going to take care of the countryside if you centralize the population in big cities?
I can answer scenario-wise. I can say their planet is basically one whole big city.
Okay.
Where they have smart farming and all sorts of nasty things to, not nasty, but nice things. It's a full city.
Oh.
It's if you know Warhammer 40,000, it's the
So there is no
Europe.
countryside.
There's no countryside. It's one big city. Okay. So your question, where does it go?
Is it about
To them or to them? Cities? Okay. Yes, please. Yeah.
In the other scenario, we know that there are small countryside, and if I want to go, I don't know, in to ski or to 2 weeks in August at the sea, it's possible because I could go in a hotel and stay there. If we have a big city, but only few big city. If I want to go, I don't know, in a mountain and ski, we have to a big, a hotel only for 2 weeks, and the other 50 weeks it remains.
Okay, all right. So let me try to rephrase this. I think that I don't want to reduce this to a scenario question, but let me try to rephrase this in this way. What he's saying is there are some activities which you cannot do in a city, and I think this is related to what the webmaster was saying in some sense. There are some activities which are not done in a city, okay, and they need to be done in a different environment. So we can assume in your scenario, it's safe to assume that there is a space to do these things. There is a mountainside, there is a countryside if one wants to visit the mountainside or the countryside. But let me try to reshape the question in this direction. The direction would be, how do you think these places, which people that live in cities want to go to, are going to survive if we invest so much in the city itself? Okay? Do you get my question? Okay.
Well, I want to say something.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in our city, in our planet, we have a really huge city. At the edge of the city, maybe here we have a city, we have a forest. Here we have a mountain, and we can get through these two places just by crossing this city. So everything can be connected by the city. Everything is on the edge of the city. So
okay. So no, please. No, please. This was the last one to drop. Sorry.
So, I mean, maybe we can set several tourist attractions just at the edge of the city, and then we can handle with this problem by just about the underground train or the footpath down.
Right. Thank you. So let me try to rephrase this. Your answer is this can be solved by the city or the cities adopting these landscapes to be an extension of them, in the same way that basically Trento has Monte Bondone, which is in the same comune territory. Is this your idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Follow up?
Yes, please.
How can this not lead to inequalities between the people living in the center of your smart city and the people living on the edges?
Inequality in which sense? I don't know if I
Because maybe I want to live near, like, in a scenario where there are more forests. I mean, for example, okay, and the only place where I can go is to the edge of the cities. Maybe most of the people want to go there, and how do you address this?
It's the same problem that you have.
No, because we have more nodes. You have
Yeah,
only
but
like
if there is only one place and you have to be there to go there.
Because this our point maybe
It's the
we
same
didn't mention, okay, and maybe it wasn't clear in the presentation, is that if you were born in a village, in a countryside, okay, smart countryside, that doesn't mean that you have to be stuck there. I mean, still we have different internal drivers. That maybe we don't, maybe our village in which we were born doesn't reflect. So this is for us like a way during also the educational process where you, during the virtualized education, you meet new people, even though it's not physical. You have the experience of knowing new cultures and maybe new identities you can relate to. Our main point is I don't have to being born in a village and being stuck there. I can go and live the other part of my life on another village. I can relate more to.
Okay, so let me try to summarize. What you are saying is, in their scenario, there still is going to be a situation where there is a difference between who lives. If they adopt a natural environment in a city, there is still going to be a situation where somebody lives closer here and somebody lives closer to there. And there is a big difference which might create inequality. Your solution, in this sense, is that if you are in a distributed environment, yes, you are in a smaller scale, but nothing forbids you from moving from one side to the other. So the movement from one side, from one node to the other in your scenario is simpler than their movement from one part of the city to the other in their scenario.
It's more sustainable, I would say.
Okay, this is your answer. Can you react to this? Yeah.
I don't think it's more difficult to transport from one part of the city to another than from one part of the planet to another. So why do you think transport inside the city is more difficult? I think we can have the mobility, of course, just inside the city. If I live in, for example, I live in the north of the city, of course I can get to the south by the train or footpath, whatever I want to do. But if you're in your planet, if I live in the North Pole, I want to go to the South Pole, I need to fly across the whole,
Just a simple follow-up. I just want to understand one clear point. Is your element you're trying to present to us a decentralized one or a centralized one? Because if I can find every city adopting just one resource, the other city adopts one resource, that means I see a decentralization of these resources. Are you centralized? Are you decentralized? Simple. Tell me.
Yeah, because you cannot have a black hole. It is centralized, but it has a dimension, so you can move from one side to the other. How can you have everything is centralized in the sense of everything of having everything there. It's physical.
Okay,
this is
hold
your
on, hold on. Okay, I think you have quite exhausted this. I will just get the question from the housekeeper. Let's see if it is relevant to do now. Otherwise, we take a small break and then we resume. Okay. And I want in the second part, I want to move a bit from this topic of just the transport because this is dominating the debate. Yes, please.
I have a question about the quality of living and how humans will live in both your worlds. And I would please take into consideration the problem of depression. Today we have scientists have found two main causes for depression, which is the increasing virtuality of life, okay, which makes us feel like in a world in which we are not. So the problem of feeling with people feeling in a place with people, but only in the virtual world. And the second one is living far from the nature and living in an artificial world, which is not the natural one. So how do you address this problem in both
Okay,
worlds?
I would actually, thank you, I would actually do this. We can have this after the break, but I reframe the question in the following way. This is a question for both teams, because your vision is moving a lot towards virtualization of life. So I think you both need to address how does your other element maybe save the other one, be the saving grace of the other one, okay? So let's take 10 minutes break. In 10 minutes we restart, okay? Folks, restarting, okay? All right, so housekeeper, can you, let's restart and restart with your question. So can you say it again?
Okay. So how do you address the problem of increasing depression, which we see also today?
Okay, and we have the two sides of depression, thank you. One is the living in two, let's say, in spaces which don't encourage social interaction. The other one is the idea of virtual, excessively virtual spaces. Right, so who wants to start?
You can start.
Yes, are you okay? Okay.
Depression.
Yes.
Talking about the increasing depression. I'll take their states they made in their slides. Mankind already chose cities. You're talking about increasing depression.
Yes.
Okay. Then I will now explain our point. In countryside, okay, each people obviously can decide where to live after they were going in a particular village. Since we have so decentralized and so different identities, you know, that ends up in people likely to go where they can relate more. What does that mean? That if you take a depression scenario, it's less likely that people living in the village they can relate more will feel depressed. Okay.
And also because we live in the countryside, we have more personal space and we have more freedom to keep like doggies or cats, or if you like it, you can have sheep or cow. We can have them in our backyard, and I think animals can help us, like make us happier, and also we can get closer to nature anytime. If you need a breath, you can just go hiking. You can like enjoy the fresh air. So I think that's the element that people live in the cities they don't have.
Okay, thank you. It's good to hear your voice. Okay.
Maybe I got it wrong.
Yes.
But the two,
sorry.
Maybe I got it wrong. But the two major causes of depressions were virtual, living in a world
yes,
which is virtual.
This is the follow-up, the next question, right?
No, I think you were replying that.
We're talking about
one same question.
Okay, I can answer to that part also.
Okay.
So when we were talking about virtualization, we were talking just about those things that make no sense to go in a place to be done. Like when I was younger, I remember I was going to school, and my teacher used to spend many hours showing us videos on TV. So in our opinion, it does make no sense to go in a place to watch a video, no sense to go in a place to read a book, and no sense to go in a place just to listen to someone speaking. We can go in places, notes of the schools and of the university, to meet other people and do those things that need you to interact with other people, and need to shake your hand, and need you to put ideas together. But studying, watching videos, and reading books is something you can do home with a more smart way. Just
okay.
They told me that they cut infrastructure.
Sorry.
So whether you keep it or not.
Let's have him and then we go to you.
It's related to his story. Also, I studied in university that my colleagues making money per minute. So imagine they came to class just to sign about on the sheet. They will not get anything from the class, all their knowledge from the internet, from their research, and they are getting money per minute. So why to waste time and not spending with my family, with my kids, and working more, and go to wasting time in coming to here, for example.
And this is not a full
No.
virtualized world.
Yeah, we're not virtualizing everything.
Okay.
Not everything, of course.
So you're saying up to a certain limit. Okay.
Yeah.
Up to you.
I mean, if we want to reply on nature, that was the other reason of depression. We think that we said it, but it's good to point it out another time. It doesn't mean that the smart, because it's a city, since it is a city, there is no nature. Of course, there is less nature. But if you have a nice place to live, why do you need such a big empty space around you? I mean, as long as you have a good place to live and perhaps a good spots of nature in the city. We mentioned the parks, but also think about what is Bosco Verticale in Milan and so on. These kind of things are possible in a city. And then I would ask to them, because they mentioned, I mean, there is this mixture now between doing things virtually, but something has to be done in a real world. So what about manufacturing? What if I need to produce something? And of course your answer will be whether or you produce everything one piece in each village and then you put everything together.
Of course.
Okay, then you need a place to put everything together.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you for asking.
Can they first answer the questions?
I would just go with one more thing.
That was the question, sorry, maybe I missed it.
I would just go adding one thing to them. An interesting case, just because for general culture, okay? An interesting case of this idea of urban planning for gardens in cities is interesting. It's a case about Venice. If you go to Venice and you cross the bridge, you arrive in Mestre and Marghera, okay? So you start from Venice, okay? You cross the bridge. To the left, you have the city of Marghera. To the right, you have the city of Mestre. The first city that was planned was the city of Mestre. The city of Marghera is much more recent, by 40 years. But this was enough in the terms of urban planning to understand the importance of nature in city planning. If you go to Marghera, which is literally 1 kilometer away from the third biggest petrol refinery of Italy, okay, 1 kilometer away, the only thing that you see are plants, gardens, and nature in the city. So I think what they are saying is that nature and city are not mutually exclusive, but there is a different view of nature in the city.
Of course.
We need to reshape it. Okay, off to you now. Plenty of time for you.
For me, my question was before more questions are posed. He had a second question, which sometimes he folds into a question back to us. Could we have more elaborate answers from him as literates? Like, because I need to exactly hear how.
So what is the question?
Which is the second question.
The question we did for you, or the one that we need to reply?
He asked
you need to answer to this question.
His question was that the causes of depressions are nature, and the lack of nature, and the excessive virtualization.
For example.
So we replied to lack of nature.
And excessive virtualization, how do you deal with
We don't have excessive virtualization. You are the ones who go to school via screen. We go to real schools.
This is what we were waiting for.
Okay. So you are keeping the analogic word in the first.
Not at all. I mean, not completely analogic, but not hardcore virtual like what they do. That's the answer.
Okay. Like he said, like something like that we need infrastructures and we need places to go to meet other people. And we were thinking in our project about a lot of co-working and co-studying places. Like a city maybe in a city you can find a big university, but all people from that university studying there. We don't need to have this university in each village, and we don't need to have each company in each village. I can work for Google even if I live in a small village, because I have my co-working space. There I can find 1,000 of people working for different companies. Maybe my company is paying the co-working space. I can meet a lot of people and work for the company I prefer, really close to home if I want to. So the same can be applied to the studying.
Thank you. I would just give another case which is interesting in this direction. which is the case very recent of the so-called, I don't like the term, but it's coming mostly from the US, so of course it's a kind of a buzzword, of the so-called digital nomads. So these are people that move from city to city and from smaller city to smaller city. And they are able to do this because effectively they're working remotely. So they just need a space which has, you know, a couch and a nice internet connection, and they can work from anywhere. So I think that their vision is going towards this direction. I would have one observation from Kim that was waiting from before.
Okay, well, I would just like to a really quick thing about remote work, which
Yes.
is of course great when you
Okay.
talk about IT infrastructure, but what if you work on an assembly line? What if you need to have, you know, the assembly line, the catena di montaggio?
Okay,
Okay,
that's
What will
good.
you do that?
That's good. We can put a big industry in a village. The concept is not putting all together
Sorry,
in a
can
centralized.
I give an answer for both teams? Guys, assembly lines? Are we really talking about assembly lines? We're talking about spaceships. And are you worried about the future of workers in assembly lines?
Wait, how are you gonna make clothes, for example?
You know, there are these things called robots.
Okay, but robots cannot replace every kind of human in a
No,
factory.
but assembly lines, no, I think your fair point. I mean, I'm giving
Any
a
sort of
boost.
physical work. I mean,
Sorry, I'm trying to give a boost to both visions. Okay, I'm trying to give a boost for both visions because the point is, let's not worry about the assembly lines. Okay, assembly line workers. I really must hope that assembly line workers will become 0.5% of the population. But a real question stemming from your observation for you is, how do you make sure that if you have a factory, a large-scale factory, which will need to exist, how do you make sure that if trouble happens to the large-scale factory, there is enough infrastructure to fix it? Okay? You might have a fully robotized factory, but if you need a spare part, where do you get it from?
And why is that a problem of us?
Because you said that you want to put a village which is composed only by a big factory, right? You
No,
just said.
not only.
Not only, but if you have the big factory, big houses for everyone, then it's not a village anymore.
Yeah, have you been to Maranello?
What
What's getting Maranello is not
Do you
Ferrari.
think Maranello is a village, or do you
Yeah.
think it's a city?
Do you think that's a good question? That's a perfect question.
I think Maranello is a good example of the size of villages that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's
We're
our
talking about the idea of the
So as far as I know, Maranello is quite bigger than a valley of Trentino,
10,000 people.
which is 5 times the valley of Trentino.
Well,
Yeah, we don't talk-
Lattice has 15,000 people.
Cimbra has 2,000.
In our vision,
Cimbra.
it's closer to a village than a
We
city.
just did it before. Not 10 houses, 5 to 10,000, and Maranello is 10,000. I don't see the problem here.
Okay.
Are we talking about villages or countryside?
Smart.
Meaning that something like cities but has more nature and more space than actual cities?
The point is countryside. Countryside, the idea of the countryside is not of the, we're not going really about villages like hamlets of 5 houses.
Yeah.
We're talking about two different views. One view is centralized and one view is decentralized. Okay? The key point is not to do rules lawyering on whether 5,000 or 6,000 people is a good limit to start calling something a city. Because by the way, there is no universal definition. The point is to compare a centralized view to a decentralized view. By the way, they are trying to muddy the waters because in their view, the village that is attached to a factory, the factory represents a central point of failure for that village. But since we are stuck in this loop, and you are not able to answer to this, which is fine. I mean, you're not supposed to be able to answer to all questions. I would have one question from him, because he was waiting from before, and then we have also the philosopher there. Okay? Please.
Which is the question within the...
No. There's no question. There just was a statement. The statement was, they are saying, when you are muddying the waters, okay, so when you are talking about a village depending on a factory, you are not able to be very convincing. This is something which they have observed, and this is the source of her confusion.
Okay.
Okay?
We don't totally agree with that, but if we
Okay,
can talk about that later.
So it's not a
that's
problem,
okay.
it's just an observation, just to show you by the
We have
way,
an answer for that.
Muddying the waters creates this problem. So, question from you, please.
Yeah, I think for both worlds, both planets, have you ever considered that mental health, the psychological need? For example, in a smart city, it will be very fast-paced. People start to like writing, and I feel really stressful if I live in that place.
and how to like ease that level of stress. Of course, I can go to yoga, I can go to mountains, I can watch a movie, but still very fast-paced, and it causes unhappiness sometimes. And for smart countryside, people need interaction. If everything is virtually, imagine the class is virtually, a kid is growing up, going to a virtual school, working virtually. It doesn't sound like so human.
Okay, we got it. Thank you. Hold on, don't answer, because I was speaking about this with Chiara, and I think she has a better question for you in this same angle, okay?
Yes, I was wondering, how do you manage to encourage the inner force that brings people to progress and to explore and to progress as a society? So it's connected to what he was saying.
So, in some sense, thank you, to rephrase this, it's a matter of speed and stimulation, okay? So, his question is for you, how do you avoid overstimulation? How do you avoid the situation which we have in cities, where now we are overstimulated? And to you, how does your model not represent a step back toward the system which brought us to cities in the first place, where we need more stimuli, okay?
I think we can reply.
Yeah, please.
The question was from me. Yeah. So I think these fast-paced cities and stress is something still related to modern cities, and it is a challenge of smart cities. So trying to have a better environment to live. We, for example, tried to propose a model in which you move by bicycle or by walking, which increases your mental and actual health. So it's a challenge of smart cities, but it's addressable. I mean, by the smart environment, by the smart transportation, that can of course address this issue. This is the answer.
So your answer, if I can try to rephrase it, because you, please.
Because living in a city, I don't think there's a really clear link between living in a city and have a stressful life. And maybe nowadays there's some metropolitan cities in the world. People live there. They have a really fast-paced life. But in our city, we're plan everything in a new view. Of course, people will live in high density in an area, but we are planning a new form, a new structure of our society. That is not the same as what we have now. So I think the stressful life is related to the form of the society, not to the form of the physical world, I mean. So, do you got what?
Okay, thank you. Let me try to rephrase this, because I think this is an interesting answer. What you're saying is the level of stress which is induced by cities is caused by two things. The fact, or actually one thing, the fact that the urbanism, the urban planning, and the structure of cities is influenced by the general societal climate. So what you are saying is stress in cities is real now, because we live in these cities which are coming from this society. But we should aim for a new urbanism that can avoid this. Of course, you are not architects, you're not urban planners, so you don't know what this new urbanism is, but you are saying the city needs to have some elements of rethinking how it works, and you gave some that should move away from this stressful life. Your answer?
Yeah, on the inquiries?
Yes, on the same question of Chiara and over here.
Okay, I'm
sorry,
to
I
cover
don't know all the names.
both inquiries. Okay. Regarding to the virtualization, we are not fully digitalized. This first point. Okay, as we discussed many times before. Regarding to the sorry, can you say again?
Understimulation was the point. Understimulation, getting enough stimuli to be active.
Okay. For the let's say internal drivers and social drivers that you should have it. Of course you will have it, because imagine yourself, you have your farm, your home, you can do whatever you want, you can work online, you can study online, you can meet your friends physically or virtualize it in virtual way, You can do whatever you want. No any pressure and like over you. So like there's no like you have to work 8 hours per day.
Yes,
No,
but,
no.
excuse me, is the pressure that puts people to do better. So how do you solve it?
Okay. Because
so,
of
sorry, if I can give one more angle on
Okay.
this. It's the idea of the otium. It's the idea of the space, the countryside has historically been seen as the space that you go to relax. But if you're in a state of permanent relaxation, how do you ensure there is enough pressure to actually perform?
Of course, there should be a kind of production and improvements on the countryside that we have it. Like for example, transportation. Of course, we will not like maybe keep it like that in the air. Maybe we'll have like produce something more enhanced and more better technologies. The technologies that we will use it to help us in our work instead of working and spend time with our family. Of course, we will produce more things to help us, and we will find the nature happiness that we wanted. So, who is like unlogically that you will leave your farm, you will leave your robotics machines, you will leave your family, and you will just sit doing nothing.
Okay, so let me try to summarize. Your position is the following. As much as they are arguing for the need to a new urbanism, you are thinking about a new need to plan and evolve the countryside. So it should not just be a matter of going back to where we were before. When we left the countryside, it should be a new model. So you're, in the sense you're giving, and you're trying to outline some of the points of the new model. So your answer is, this idea of the stimulation, it will require some radical changes in how we see the countryside.
Yeah, of course, there will be always changes and more improvements.
Okay,
Not going
Can I
before you,
just start?
You have 10 seconds.
Okay. No, the problem you mentioned in the past was based on the fact of knowledge. People didn't know, living in the countryside, didn't know how much were the opportunities in the other places. You know, you were born there, grew up there, and you died there, so you didn't know how the other part of the world.
So you are saying, since we went through the urban phase, now we know what the pitfalls of the countryside originally
Yeah, but
were,
people is
and we can
interconnected.
extract
People can
lessons
see
for
the world.
future. Okay, so I want to have questions from the audience. There was one from the photographer for sure. Who else has questions? I want to see if there are new people. Okay, so please, I will start. Oh, you also have one?
Yes.
Yes, so please, I will start from you, and then we go to the talk. So yes.
A question for you. Do you think villages should reach sustainability and autosufficiency in their own territories?
Right, so are villages self-sufficient? Is every node self-sufficient, or does it obtain this
We can try to
sustainability
answer,
from
but
the
I guess
network?
in the scenario that was said, like, not to think about the resources. Am I wrong?
Yes, no, it's correct.
I think
But-
not to
Yeah.
not care about resources.
Yeah.
So we didn't plan.
Yes,
That's
but,
not in our
but
project.
I think that the question still remains, is not just a matter of practical resources, so
Okay.
you don't have to make it plausible. I think his question is a question of vision.
Okay.
Does your vision go more towards each node being self-sustained, or each node drawing the sustainability from the network?
In a decentralized view, every node can contribute to a really big grid. And everything is interconnected, of
Okay,
course.
so nodes don't need to be
They
self-sustained
do
because
not
the
need
network
to be.
provides for
Yeah.
that. Okay.
For more interactive manner.
Okay.
So, and
Yeah,
you
okay.
manage the network. So if you have a network, you mean, or you have some decentralized networks that is very difficult.
That's
to create.
decentralized for
Or
sure.
you have to create a centralized
Mm,
point
no centralized.
to
Like
dispatch
our
the energy resources.
yes, like our two groups, our two sides were like centralization and decentralization. So the answer was like in the
The answer is they are presenting a system which is fully decentralized.
yeah, we represent
so there is
we
no
represent the
central authority.
decentralized system. Yeah.
If you want, you can try to poke them further, but we have very short on time on how this works. But okay, so I will have a question for him.
Okay, it's quite related. So not every city has some mean of production. So for example, if I need a pen, someone should send a drone also from 1,000 kilometers farther. And this is quite an overhead. So I think if during Christmas maybe everyone buy a lot of clothes and a lot of people moves and the sky would be full of drones and maybe let's say what if a drone fall and kill someone, why is this
Thank
the
you.
best?
Let me try to rephrase this again. How do you solve the problem of micro logistics? So because macro logistics is very convincing. But what about micro logistics? And what about the conveniency of the city life?
Okay. Okay, there are two parts. We can like divide it. Okay. For example, if I have, I have a farm and I'm producing like each, for example, like a couple of months or season, I'm producing some kind of food. So I have two options. I can like sell it online, of course. I can sell it directly right now, and I can like pack and keep it in the warehouse, of course, till somebody requests it, and I can like ship it to him. This for the food. For the other.
Yeah,
like
I guess we should just think to be in a far and advanced future, and just think that now the difference there is nowadays from 1 century ago. So nowadays I buy things on Amazon for just €2, and one of my friends yesterday told me he's going to New York next week for just the weekend. So we are already fast with things, you know. Just think at the difference that is between today and 1 century ago, and just think what can happen in the next centuries.
I would keep the question, however, the micro logistics. So what I'm saying is things will evolve in the future, but how do you think that when people have micro needs, I need a pen now, and my city doesn't provide pens for whatever reason, my node doesn't provide pens for whatever reason, where do I get my pen?
I cannot say that. I cannot see the problem. Like,
if we are producing.
What about our world nowadays? Is that a problem nowadays in your opinion?
The city has enough supply, enough critical mass, where basically any good that I need, I can order it and get it quickly. In your case, how does it work without creating a huge overhead?
We have like manufacturer companies.
Yes,
that
but the point is, this might be on the other side of the planet. Right?
Of course, we're not saying there is just one pen producer around all the world. Of course.
Okay, so you're saying, I'm just trying to find your point. You're saying there is enough granularity, there should be enough granularity to ensure that what needs are fulfilled, the basic ones or the advanced ones?
It depends, divided on the like rate or number of population that we have it per square meter.
Okay.
Like the more people you have, the more industries you should have.
Okay, but who does the planning of this?
Of course, the government and some. It's not that. Of course,
that's an open market.
But
Everyone can
decentralized. So you're in a decentralized. So the plan.
Yeah.
How does it happen?
It happens like automatically.
Organically. Okay.
Yes,
so you're
organically.
There is organically going to be a system.
Nowadays, I already buy things on Amazon that are €2 and are shipped from the other part of Italy.
Okay, so we
can see
move
the problem.
towards the closing. I will just have them react real quick, and then I give you the closing. Do you have any reactions?
Yeah, we do. So I think there is a lot of confusion because their village is, when we talk about virtualization, they mention that they do have infrastructure. But when we mention that there cannot be infrastructure, then they reply that they are virtual. So there is a bit of confusion, but maybe it's just me.
Not the same confusion.
Okay. I think there is, but anyway. Then, how do you make sure that the planet is uniform enough so that if I need a pen, I don't need to go to the other side of the planet? I don't think this happens so spontaneously as you said. Then, how do you deal with all the services that we can offer in a smart city? Everything is there for you. What if you have to travel all around to have every single thing?
Okay, I got your point. I will try to rephrase the question for them, which is this. Give me an answer precise in 5 seconds. How do you manage constructed needs? Because a pen is a constructed need, right?
Can we discuss?
Yes, but give me a very precise answer.
Sure.
In the meantime, I will give you how we conclude this, okay? So, in the conclusions, now, that each of you are going to make very quickly, we want to hear 2 main points. First point, what is the first step to get there? Okay? As usual, to get to your vision. Second point, have they said in a sketch in Italy, diteci qualcosa di sinistra, which means tell us something that the other group cannot say. Tell us something that is unique to your position and the other group cannot say it. If you fail to do this, people will not understand your point. So, now, 2 tasks for the conclusions. First step, and tell us something that the other group could not say. Okay? Let's have a bit of a... elevator music. No, please. You can say. Louder. These are the two frameworks with their operating. They have a decentralized framework and they represent a centralized. This is the overall planetary scale. It's not Earth, it's another planet. Two other planets. So which way do you buy the ticket? This was at the very beginning. Did you arrive late? So this was the. Okay, so are you ready? Are you ready? So please, I think they start this time.
So to conclude, what we have and what they don't is services available, efficient, and reliable. All of these three adjectives are important because it's important to be available, of course, reliable, and efficient. The first step is already happening today. We can think of cities like Singapore, but also the cities here in Europe are trying to learn from mistakes of the past, are trying to introduce more elements such as smart elements and nature, such as it's happening, for example, as I mentioned earlier, in the Bosco Verticale in Milan and so on. So
okay.
introducing smart elements in the cities.
All right, thank you. Guys, up to you, very fast. Very fast.
You're going?
Which points? Say the points.
Yeah, for the market, the thing
These
that...
2 points. One thing that you do and the other ones don't. And
Okay,
first
we
step.
can end with that at the end, okay?
No, just these 2 things. Very quick.
Okay, for example, for Ben producing and any other things, of course, when, for example, you didn't find
No. Too late to answer to this question.
Yeah,
Just
the market is self-regulating. If
Okay.
pens are expensive here,
All right,
because
free
they are
market
produced
exists.
on the other side of the earth, another company begins producing pen closer to me. That's a self-regulating open market, and it works. We know it works. Because it already
And
works.
one thing we have that they don't have is we don't need to make up nature. Nature is part of the countryside. People no longer need to leave their best places of comfort to just go and be crowded place. Everything the city had, we are bringing it to them. The first thing we are making is we visualize everything they've ever desired, to live their comfort, to live their nature, to leave everything behind like Trentino, the mountains, to go and be congested in the city. That's what we want.
Okay.
The interaction. The interaction is important. We have it. You can interact with your family, with your friends.
2 minutes. You say.
That's it.
Per fortuna, we say.
Yeah. What? No, you have the same time.
I'm not really.
Yes, you are. I am quite sure. All right. So, time to vote. I think we just go by raise of hands because it's very late. So, who votes for the smart city? Raise your hands. Smart countryside. Raise your hands. I think it's city. Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. So city won. We need to go. We will meet on the next Monday, but I will ask the housekeeper to do one thing. Next Tuesday, if you can, we would like to invite you for dinner. Okay? But we will not pay the dinner. Okay? We have a dinner. But we would like to share a dinner with you. Okay? Let's put it like this. I would ask the housekeeper to put a poll on the Telegram channel where people can quickly sign up if they're coming. Okay? We need to reserve, so we need to be planning. It will be Tuesday, next Tuesday at 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. Okay? All right. Ciao. See you on Monday.